EdTech Mondays Kenya is supported by the MasterCard Foundation Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning in partnership with EdTech East Africa.
Welcome to this edition of EdTech Mondays Kenya. We're coming to you from our studio. Today's episode is both reflective and forward-looking. We'll revisit the gains made in 2025, identifying what worked, what challenges, and what lessons might guide our next steps. At the same time, we will cast a collective vision for 2026, what an inclusive, data-driven, and future-ready EdTech ecosystem could look like, and how each stakeholder, from policymakers and practitioners to parents and learners, can play a role in shaping that future. Across our 2025 episodes, EdTech Mondays convened voices from government, development partners, educators, innovators, and learners to unpack critical themes shaping Kenya's education technology agenda. We explored how technology is transforming teacher professional development, improving foundational literacy and numeracy, and expanding lifelong learning opportunities for diverse learners. As we transition into 2026, EdTech Mondays Kenya is setting its sights on a bold goal, and that's to contribute meaningfully to the evidence-based revision of Kenya's ICT in Education and Training Policy 2021. This policy review presents a timely opportunity to integrate the insights and recommendations that have emerged from Kenya's EdTech community over the past few years. Thank you all for joining us on this edition. I'm your host, Ian Ofula. Joining us for this very important conversation, we have Faith Mbushi, who's the policy researcher from EdTech Hub, who will help us understand what research and data says about how EdTech is evolving in the Kenyan context. We also have Shiku Mbugua, the EdTech East Africa's CEO, who will share the strategic direction for 2026 and the role EdTech Mondays will play in driving policy impact. And then finally, we have Julius Irungu, the CEO and co-founder of eSoma Solutions, representing the ecosystem of innovators and implementers working to translate policy into practical, scalable solutions for classrooms. Thank you very much and welcome all. Let me start with our newest CEO in the building, Shiko. From your perspective, what are the most significant EdTech developments or policy milestones when you look back into 2025?
For me, I think being able to work together with government to generate evidence around what is working in our schools or how EdTech should work in our schools as we go through the review of the ICT in Education and Training Policy 2021 has been really significant. I think we all know that we're used to building on one side and then issuing the policies. But I think having everybody's voice, and not just in Nairobi, going with them to all of the regions that we've been to generate evidence that they can hear from actual practitioners in the field has been absolutely game-changing in my view. Yeah. I wonder what Faith would say.
Yeah. Okay, now that you've cued her, Faith, over to you. It's okay.
Yeah, for me, this has been an interesting year. And I think from policy and strategy perspectives, as you've said, the fact that the government launched the AI strategy 2025 was really significant because it was a policy signal to say, all systems go now. This is a direction we're taking on artificial intelligence. And I've seen a lot of partners jump onto that bandwagon and say, okay, now we have a policy, let's train our teachers. And organizations like Metis have actually created communities of practice to use artificial intelligence with teachers, with hands-on practice through their Amal labs. They have communities of practice with over 800 teachers testing daily on what does artificial intelligence mean for teachers today. I'm also excited about EdTech Hub's research on artificial intelligence, and we did also find out from teachers what do they think artificial intelligence means to them. And they've come out and say things like, we want artificial intelligence to help us be effective, improve our efficiency, reduce our workload, but also teach us how to learn, because this is what artificial intelligence does for them. But there are also concerns they have raised around how does this mean for our learners? Does it affect their cognitive ability? So that's exciting. Artificial intelligence for me is the big thing for 2025.
And I think we'll come to the concerns because part of this conversation is also to look ahead, right? Julius, for you, from an innovator's perspective, what stood out for you last year? Are people creating more platforms, for instance? Has the space become more eco-friendly, for lack of a better word?
So many things happened in the year, and with regards maybe first to policy is for the first time I felt like implementers, innovators were in the room, in the conversation where this policy is being made. And it will not be a case of looking at a policy and asking, where is the punishment placed in this policy? It was a conversation we look into, where can we gain more? Where can we be better? With regards to the ecosystem and growth, I've experienced a lot of now coming together, harmonizing thoughts and working together as players in the industry. Prior to this year, I've not seen a lot of collaborations in the ecosystem, but in 2025, that is something that has really come into life. You sit down with somebody you always thought is a competitor and you're like, well, I feel like we can work together. There is so much difference, but we are trying to achieve the same goals. So why don't we harmonize what we are doing, come together and give the learners, the parents, the teachers a better way to improve their learning outcomes.
I think you've said something crucial about in 2025, you saw a lot more collaborations. So what was happening before that? What changed rather? What brought about this collaboration a lot more?
Initially, everybody was building on their own. And there was not much coming together as ecosystem players. One thing, because I felt like we did not know each other as players in the ecosystem. But then again, systems have come in and programs have come in and events have come on board, like things like the EdTech East Africa is doing with the summits, and you start meeting innovators, you start meeting people in the space, you start conversing around the work you are doing, and then that is where you start finding the points of confluence where you can come together, work together, build something more seamless, try to intersect yourself into the work of teachers and parents. We've sat in these summits with the teachers, with the learners, with the parents, the ecosystem coming together and starting to understand each other more, which I feel has played a huge part in building this culture now of collaboration and working together.
And Shiko, you mentioned something about moving around with the government, and very often there's a perception that government might not be so collaborative. How did that come about and what was your experience with that?
It's taken time, Ian. I think you have to build trust. One of the things that maybe got us here is we took the time to understand where government is coming from. Oftentimes, when you're building, maybe as an entrepreneur or dealing with research, it's difficult to understand the complexities within which government builds. When you're thinking of reaching 500,000 learners, for instance, government is thinking, will your solution work for all 15 million? And it's that coming to the table to hear them out, also exposing our community to them. I think them being part of the summits has been brilliant because now they know the innovators that are building for their education system. And I think that trust has led us to a place where they have now become co-creators. And I think it has taken time, but I'm really glad that we got there.
And Faith, what does your research show, especially when it comes to teachers and learners and the uptake of technology and EdTech in general in classrooms?
I want to build on a little bit to what Shiko said around government involvement. And I think understanding what the role government plays in creating or in enabling an environment. And I think for the longest time, we in the ecosystem, EdTech entrepreneurs, teachers, researchers, NGOs, we have this, high expectation of what the government should do, as opposed to, as you said, mindset shifting to this is for us as well. We are in this together. And what the government comes in to do then is to create an enabling environment, and through policy, through listening, through understanding what are the best solutions. And we all then come in there to the playing field, to cooperate with them, to build together. To the question you've asked me around what does the teachers and learners have to do with all this education technology? And I will say, first of all, I have seen a mindset shift as well. For the longest time, when competency-based curriculum came in and this digital literacy and integrating technology into teaching and learning was something that teachers didn't quite jump into, with all hands and all feet. And naturally, because it was a new thing, but I have seen, as we researchers and interventions and EdTech entrepreneurs have come to see, that we don't treat teachers as one group. We have teachers who are early adopters. We have teachers who take some time. We have teachers who already know, especially younger teachers who are teaching junior schools. So that understanding has helped us know these are the solutions that work for teachers who take a long time to integrate ICT. They need this kind of hands-on practical experience. They need this kind of school-based support in the school, every day practicing with these tools, having a community that is supported by the head teacher, a community that is supported by the private sector to grow. Because as we wait for everyone to get infrastructure, and I know the challenges, we'll get to that, the challenges that we are facing, we can do what we can with the resources that we have, whether it's mobile first or it's the teacher's internet. What can the teacher do to create with the agency that she has to integrate ICT in teaching and learning with the tools that they have? Yeah.
Julius, what does this mean for you as an innovator? Of course, looking at trends back in 2025, we're hearing now that students are way ahead of their time and their available resources. Does this put you to the spot as an innovator? Are you constantly thinking, okay, I need to do the next thing?
Absolutely, because technology is pretty fast, and what was working in 2022 is probably now sliding off the market, and you need to keep innovating and getting better. And children are always as fast as technology, I would want to say. And when I look at how the market has behaved in the recent past, or how it is started and how it's going, initially it was a case of, can we first convince them that technology is good for learning? And then after we convince them, now they are on this side, are they able to adopt technology? The learners are ready, some teachers are ready. Are the administrators also ready to integrate technology? Are we willing to commit enough resources into this? When you look at how technology works and how we want it to be in schools, we're looking at solutions becoming hyperscalers. We don't want to just be targeting 500 learners, 10,000 learners. We want every one of the 15 million learners in the country to have access to technology. And what sort of technology are we talking about when we are saying access? We want every learner to have what they need at any given time. When you were in school, you could go into a library, access whatever book you want to do a certain topic. Probably it's math in Form 3, but you want a certain publisher's book to use it, for that topic. You have access to like 20 books that you could use. So are we able to take technology to that level where every learner can access the kind of technology they want for what they want to learn? If they want to do math today, what technology do they want to use? If they want to do science tomorrow, what solution do they want to access that has been brought to the school? So when we look at what the government is doing, what the private sector is doing, we harmonize this work and we are able to take technology to every learner in their own setting.
Yeah, and Shiko, feel free to add anything on that. But also another question that comes to play is, as you look back to 2025 and even the years before, what stands out as education's technology's biggest as EdTech's biggest contribution towards the education sector?
I think I'll build on what Julius said first, because I think another way to, and this is why I love being part of an ecosystem, is we all don't have to build the same way. How can my solution build on yours? If Julius has been in a school and set some ground, is there a solution that comes and sits on it, so that we are not thinking of our solutions as individual solutions, but we begin to look for ways that they interact? I think that is a possible way to scale, in my view. Easier said than done, I know, but I'm glad that there are young entrepreneurs who are thinking in that line. What do I think has been EdTech's biggest contributor so far? I think, for one, we are building resilience. When COVID hit, we were caught quite flat-footed. And I think that we have taken a lot of lessons since then. If we got into another pandemic, God forbid, it wouldn't find us where COVID found us. And I think that that's a big plus. I think it has also introduced a lot of innovation. I'm seeing teachers now taking the initiative to use technology to learn, so that they can understand how to reach each and every learner. Not every learner will understand the method you're using to teach math. With technology, you can now research different ways of solving the same problem. That's something that didn't exist before, or at least that wasn't adopted before. I think another thing is it has brought, now this is from EdTech East Africa's view, sitting as the ecosystem builder, I'm watching something beautiful happen. Because we are now having consistent EdTech conversations, I'm seeing the stakeholders coming together to think about education. I think it's been very rare. I'm trying to think back to when we started the CBC, which is now CBE. I don't think there were forums that came together to think about how to do this well. So I think that in that area, EdTech is showing the way. How do we come together and it doesn't have to be technology. If we could use these platforms to talk about all of the other issues that our learners are facing, I think we've set some good foundation for that too.
And Faith, I'm going to cue here to talk about the challenges. Just cue us in, because I feel like it would be unfair for us to not. We've acknowledged how far we've done, but let's look at some of the issues that we could address to ensure that we improve EdTech moving forward.
Yeah, I think to begin with, as Julia said, equity is a big challenge, and I think we're at a place where we already know what the problems are. Say, for example, on digital infrastructure, we know the areas that don't have connectivity, that don't have devices, that don't have enough teachers. But we are also, as Shiko said, having these conversations throughout 2025 have allowed us to go deeper into understanding. So in infrastructure, we know that devices were given in 2017 for one laptop per child. We know that. We know that there are some schools that are not using these devices, but we did not know what the reasons behind head teachers, for example, who store the devices in a storage as opposed to using them. Now we know that there are policies that they were more focused on compliance of we have the devices, but we were not taught the next step after having the devices. We know that having the resources to use internet, electricity, teacher training to maintain these devices, those are some of the challenges. Now that we know that, we also know that it's not the government's job alone. They may have provided an enabling environment, but everyone, including the parents, needs to chip in on the daily internet that's needed, maybe the daily electricity that's needed. The other big challenge we have had, and we have listened to the people, is around teacher training. And we also know that skilling the teachers to prepare them for this moment of integrating ICT is important.
Let me just bring in Julius for this, actually, to talk about the safety aspect. As an innovator, is this also a concern for you?
Yeah, when you're building, you must think about the end user. And in this case, when you're building technology, especially for young learners, you're talking about people who cannot even consent on anything because they are underage. Legally, they are not allowed. So, number one, you have to be compliant to legal measures put in place and requirements. You've got to look at data protection. You've got to look at how do you loop in the parent or the guardian, or the teacher, is the person in charge of this learner. So when you're building solutions, those are factors you need to put together, that when you bring a learner into this system, there are safeguards you've put in place for them to be able to access learning without being interrupted externally or accessing what they should not be able, they are not allowed to access at that age. So when you bring these people together, you have already created the first safety mechanism. When you are compliant, that means you have also placed benchmarks for yourself as an organization, as a solution, to make sure that kids who come on board are safe using your solution. You don't want a situation whereby on one side it's learners learning, but within the same system, you have adults trying to probably chat with the learners, have conversations with the learners. Then you will be going against the safeguards that require protection for those learners. So safety is a big thing and a big concern. We have hardware builders in the EdTech space who are making sure that they bring solutions whereby if my solution as a software is installed into that gadget, then as a parent, you are very sure that the child will not be able to access anything apart from what is meant for learning. So this is a conversation something that is being done by software developers for learning, that is EdTech builders and hardware builders for solutions in learning, where there is now that collaboration and the government putting in the protections through legal measures. Then we are sure that we have created some sort of a safety net for learners to use EdTech solutions without such big concerns about their safety on the digital space.
Yeah, and Shiko, for you, what do you think in terms of something that we should pay attention in 2026? In terms of challenges we're hearing about on the safety for users, we're looking at training for teachers and also equity. Is there anything else that stands out for you? And you can also build on these three.
I think for me, anyone that has heard me talk long enough about tech, teachers.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the teacher remains, for me, the greatest lever to how we use tech in our classrooms. So how we train, and I'm really excited because now the policy reform around teacher education is heavy on digital. I think now all of our TTCs are digitally enabled. And so that means that we're looking forward to, in the next 4 years, a crop of really tech-savvy teachers. But more than being tech-savvy, we want teachers who understand how to leverage the tech well. I've been in classrooms where the teacher loves the technology because it gives the learner, especially the fast learners, something to do while they deal with the ones that need support. But they don't know that this tool can give them data. They don't know that this tool can help them equalize understanding in the classroom. Once we get there, I think that's, to me, half of our problem solved. I think something else we need to pay attention to is the reality of where the development sector is going now. The funding mechanisms are changing. Where do our young people get money to build solutions that work really well? And, all of the other organizations that support this process. What's the role of private sector? What's the role of domestic funding? I think for me, I'm very keen to see more domestic players come on board. I'm very encouraged by Safaricom's move recently with the launch of Citizens of the Future, because that assures me that if we have understanding, we can get local players to invest in a system that actually feeds back into their organizations. So that's where my eye will be, I guess, for 2026.
Yeah. What about for you, Faith, in terms of the ICT policy? This is a working document, but technology is also moving a lot faster. How does that space look like for you to ensure that everyone is on board and working together?
In the past, we were building top-down. We were formulating policies top-down. But now we are including teachers. We have had the voices of teachers. We have had the voices of learners. We have had the voices of every ecosystem builder that is supposed to, have a voice there. But I think more than that, as we formulate this policy, we need to think more around now dissemination. When we were working this year on the policy, we found that only 1% of the people knew that the ICT policy of 2021 existed. We have created the momentum for more people to know about it, but we need to put in the systems that everyone that needs to know what the policy says should now know. From the teachers to the parents to the head teachers, creating systems that can communicate the policy intentions well, so that the people that are supposed to use those policies actually understand this is the direction that we're taking.
Julius, I'll ask you the same question to kind of reflect on the ICT policy 2021 from an innovator's perspective. What is the one thing that parents should know? And as it stands, is the policy favorable for you as an innovator?
The ICT policy 2021 was a little bit too broad in terms of what we focus on as EdTech players and what it focused on, because it looks at the education spectrum from the youngest learners all the way to training of in college and universities. And the review that has been happening looks into streamlining that further, into focusing on this small elephant in the room called EdTech that needs to fit within this policy. And we've even been having a conversation when we sat in those policy conversations. Do we actually need to go into the ICT policy 2021, or do we need to narrow down to an EdTech policy now that looks into all the aspects? When you're talking about EdTech, we are talking about different functionalities that teachers and learners are looking at. Is it meant for learning? Is it meant for school management? Those are things that were pretty absent in the ICT policy for education and training 2021, and it's things we've been trying to converse around and have them placed into this policy. And then we are looking at something that can be a little bit flexible in its adaptation as we go forward. This year, one of the biggest conversations had been on artificial intelligence, AI. 3-4 years down the line, we'll be talking about something else that is so big enough in technology that also needs to be integrated. Where is this policy allowing enough room for quick fixes, for quick integration of new developments? A parent or a school probably wants to adopt something that has come up in the technology field. Does the policy allow them to be quick enough to bring it on board, or do we have to go again through a whole review that will take another 2-3 years, and then we have something else new that has come up? So are we able to have these things covered with more flexibility as we go forward?
And I'm now starting to take final comments, and I'll start with kind of like a mini exercise for all of us, or as you give us your final word. If you could describe your hope for EdTech in Kenya in one word, that is in 2026, what would that be and why?
Future ready. I know 2 words.
Why?
Because the why of education really is to prepare the next generation to take up opportunities for them. So for me, that's very important. That's the kind of education we are doing right now is education that prepares our future generations to take up this space. And this space is not just local space, it's regional space, it's global space. If they are ready enough, they can work anywhere, they can leverage any opportunity. And it removes us from allowing technology to build the digital divide. So for me, that's important, future ready.
What about for you, Julius? The one word, looking at 2026 and then the why.
Interoperability. As an innovator, I'm looking at my solution being open to other distribution networks, whereby my solution can plug into other solutions. I can layer on into a learning management system, into a content distributor, and then wherever they have accessed markets, then I'm also able to access that market. So if we are able to achieve that, then we will be in safe hands as players in the EdTech space.
Okay, Shiko, you have our last word, literally.
Mine is data heavy. I think if we understand how to leverage technology to get numerous data sets that give us adequate quality data that helps us to drive our education sector forward, we will have done something incredible.
Well, that's it for this conversation. Thank you very much. Quite insightful, and I'm glad that 2026 is looking absolutely promising. Well, that's it for this edition of EdTech Mondays Kenya. Remember to follow us on social media using the hashtag EdTech Mondays Kenya to share your thoughts, and let's keep the conversation going. Special thanks to our sign language interpreter, Ms. Rose Omolo. My name is Ian Ofula. Until next time, goodbye.
EdTech Mondays Kenya is supported by the MasterCard Foundation Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning in partnership with EdTech East Africa.